Let's move now to our newsmaker on the 9 o'clock news. BJP stalwart Jaswant Singh, one of the big four in the Vajpayee government, but increasingly finding himself isolated in the BJP of today. Mr. Jaswant Singh joins me tonight, speaking, however, not just on partisan lines. Sir, thank you for joining us in the 9 o'clock news. I know that you watched the Prime Minister's, you heard the Prime Minister's statements relayed by editors, you read very carefully what he said and the release issued by the Prime Minister's office. You have strong opinions on what's currently happening, to governance in India, not just as a BJP leader, but as you said, as an Indian. Your reaction, sir, as a former finance minister as well, to the Prime Minister's statement that is the mood of cynicism today, which is hitting investment, which is killing our growth.
The Prime Minister himself admits that, of course, he called it, he said it's because of cynicism that investment is drying up. The great tragedy is that all the years of the virtual revolution of economic development since early 90s, since actually from late Rajiv Gandhi's days, the very first beginnings of it, we've been moving towards economic improvement, financial probity, etc. And suddenly the Prime Minister too has to admit investment is drying up.
Yes.
There's an air of cynicism. Investment will dry up if we don't have governance. If officers of very senior rank in the government of India simply do not put their pen to paper, will simply not clear a paper because they are frightened to death of what might happen tomorrow. Very high-ranking, not civil servants, but executives of the trade industry, commerce.
Yes.
If they are arrested, then of course you are creating not just simply within India, but internationally, you are creating an atmosphere which is extremely adverse to Indian economic situation.
So you've used the words frightened to death. Now there is another view completely. It's the view which many people say echoes what citizens feel, that finally we're seeing some justice, we're seeing politicians, we're seeing powerful bureaucrats actually going to jail. What is your view on the whole popular mood on this, and do you feel that politicians like A. Raja and Kanimoi and top corporates who are currently in jail should actually be getting bail?
I agree. I agree that the popular mood, which in other contexts we have said the street, the popular mood, the street is baying for the blood of the politician, to which community I belong. But I think somebody has to stand up and say that, look, don't do this, don't kill the goose that has laid golden eggs all this while. You can't destroy the very origins of the economic growth. You can't spread despair in the country. If people are arrested, they must be judged by the law of the land, and a bail is due to them. As I believe, I'm not a jurist, nor am I a lawyer, neither by preference nor by training. But if somebody arrested, I'm so sorry, is entitled to bail, then I think as a citizen of this country, I can appeal to the courts and say, please let them have bail. Do charge them, do arraign them, and do, once the trial is over, put them into prison. But a bail is a right. Don't deny that right to the citizen simply because the popular mood is today so angry. System, our philosophy of jurisprudence is not governed by popular anger. It's governed by the Constitution and is governed by the various acts that we have adopted for ourselves.
That's a very important point, Sonia. The first major politician to have said this so openly and differed perhaps from what your party line is on it. Now, again, it's interesting because the Prime Minister also blamed the constant sniping by the opposition for the current mood of cynicism which he says is afflicting the country.
What is the opposition to do? I've been in opposition. I've been leader of one of the houses for 5 years, and I've also been leader of the opposition for 5 years. What is the opposition to do if not to oppose the wrongdoings of the government? And it will be constant, as the Prime Minister kindly describes it, if the mistakes are constant and so large as to deserve attention.
Right. So the burning political issue of today really is whether the Prime Minister's office should come under the Lokpal. As I said, as a political stalwart, as somebody who's been in politics for so many years and seen this Lokpal bill languish, as it were, do you feel the Prime Minister needs to be under the Lokpal?
This is my 8th term in Parliament. Should the Prime Minister be, before I give my personal judgment on this, I don't know what the party's viewpoint will finally be. We cannot have a situation, and this I have said in Parliament, we have a tendency to have a law for every new crime, and we have a tendency to create a new police organization or a body for every new criminal. Now we already have what I have called and said so in Parliament. We have the stranglehold of the C3, which is the CVC, the CNAG, and the CBI. Now, these three put together unintendedly, completely, have brought about a situation in which governance has come to a standstill. We witness it every day.
Well, it's interesting, sir, because the stranglehold of the C3, as you put it, is again the BJP quotes the CAG regularly. So again, you're expressing your strong individual views, but the larger point, surely there is no public faith in politicians. The public faith is with the CAG much more than it is with, say, a parliament legal system or the political system.
Oh, I agree. Oh, I agree. I agree with that. I agree totally with you. We are no longer seen as public servants. If I say this is my 8th term, I'm astonished as to how I've survived for so long. We are not seen. We are not seen as public servants unless we reform ourselves. There is a wonderful, pad in Tulsi Krit Ramayana. This is yours is in English program, but would you permit me to quote that?
Of course, sir.
This is Tulsi ji, and he's saying in Ramcharitmanas, Para upadesh kusala bahutere, je acharahi te narana ghanere. Let me explain it very briefly. Para upadesh kusala bahutere. Those that lecture others are numerous. Je acharahi, but those that conduct themselves. Je acharahi te narana ghanere. Those are very few. Now, we are witnessing exactly that. You find fault with if the citizens today find fault with the politicians fully deserve to be charged. We are the guilty party. And unless we reform, we should not ask others to reform.
Right, those lines applicable, of course, to so many institutions today in India. But when you talked about the citizens and the citizens groups, we've seen the whole Anna Hazare threat to go on fast again. He's met with senior BJP leaders today. Do you actually, the BJP says they support Anna Hazare, but are you with him when it comes to him going on fast once again? Do you think that's a logical step to eradicate corruption?
I'm with him when it comes to taking steps to eradicate corruption. But I'm not with him when it comes to saying, no, I will fast here, or I will fast there, if you don't do this, that, or the other. Now, this, if anything and everything were to happen in this country through the persuasion of fast, I'm afraid whatever little governance we have in the country would also come to a standstill.
So, the fast is not the right way to go about it, but are you convinced by what this government has done against corruption, by the government's version of the Lokpal draft? Do you think politicians in this government are doing enough against corruption?
I do profoundly believe, and sincerely, that money corruption is possibly the easiest corruption to cure. Have proper laws that make citizens feel free and don't convert citizens into criminals. The corruption of spirit that we are witnessing today, that corruption of spirit is what is ailing India, Indian politicians. And I do wish the Prime Minister had referred to this corruption of spirit. He cannot say, I'm helpless. It is his function as Prime Minister to lead. He cannot say, I wrote 4 times. Call the person that you are working with. He cannot abandon the collective responsibility of a cabinet. I've been a soldier. Why does a soldier agree to die? It's one of the most profound questions that every soldier faces. When we are commissioned, as I was commissioned, and as we pass slow march through Chetwood Hall, that great saying by Field Marshal Chetwood that there is all the honor, welfare, country, the men you command next, your own is last. It applies to all levels of leadership. You cannot abandon those that are with you. And you have to accept that the responsibility is collective. That is the fault I find with the Prime Minister.
And the interesting point to express, corruption of spirit. I know you said that's not confined to one political party or to the UPA. And perhaps privately, do you find yourself upset by what you find the corruption of spirit in the BJP as well? The divide, we've seen the open sniping between senior leaders like Sushma Swaraj and Arun Jaitley. What is your view, sir, on the divide within the BJP?
You know, I really wish you hadn't asked me about the BJP, because I don't want to get into what would really be parochial observations. After all, you find the same ailment in the CPM. We witnessed it when my dear esteemed colleague Somnathji had to face what he had to earlier face.
Yes,
or what Buddhadev is now facing.
Yes, sir, but
I think there's something in the functioning of our political system which brings this forward. Don't ask me to comment on the BJP, please.
But sir, I do have to ask you that today, in today's polity, surely the BJP is more relevant than the CPIM. It's the main opposition party. So doesn't the divide then hit national politics as well?
Oh, it is, of course. It is. I agree that it is relevant, that the BJP must come across as a unified, united, conceptually one front to lead a revived National Democratic Alliance to answer the needs of the country.
And
no doubt about it.
And you don't feel that's happening, sir?
If it were happening, then perhaps some of these problems would be solved.
Well, Jaswant Singh, ji, thank you so much for joining us, sir. I think those last words really sum up your views on what's happening in the BJP and the larger issue of the corruption of spirit in the Indian polity. Thanks so much, sir, for joining me tonight.